We've gone through similar things.
Yes.
If you can share a little bit more about your journey of overcoming betrayal and divorce and where you were at before all this, and then walk me through what sparked you into becoming a coach.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse since 2010, and I was working in pediatric ICU, which is interesting because I was a cardiac ICU nurse working with the heart. And now I focus on heart healing in the spiritual sense. I just love seeing all the connections. I think I was always meant to be down this path. I was in a 15-year relationship, and 4 of those years were married. And, my life was on autopilot. I rinse, repeat, like wake up, I'd go to work, I'd do the thing, I'd come home, okay, dinner. And to the point where I was starting to notice that I would just be burnt out. Like I just come home and I'd lay down and I just binge Netflix. And I would have this voice in my head saying like, get up, like you need to do something. And I just like, I can't. I was just like paralyzed. I was just so exhausted. Being the financial provider in my relationship, I was, looked at as like the example in my family. I'm a first generation Latina. And so everything was like, oh, look at Michelle. And like, to the external world, it looked like I had it all together, but really inside I was so empty. Somebody asked me, I think the first thing that really started me on this path was, what do you do for fun? Or like, what's a hobby? And I was like, fun, hobby. I don't even know the last time I had a hobby. I was like, does sleep count? Because that's all I was doing. And then I would start getting into like depression and recognizing that I just felt really empty, very alone in my marriage. And I wanted to ignore it. So I would stuff it under the rug, continue on with my life, pretend like nothing's a problem, as I would always do. And I was also going through infertility treatment at the time. So imagine I'm working my Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I'm working remotely as a nurse. I'm going through infertility treatment because we're having trouble conceiving, and it involves a really grueling IVF journey. And then there was a mental health crisis within my family that I was spearheading because it was in the middle of COVID, and I was the one that kind of just took the role. No one asked me to take the lead, but I was the most equipped to handle what was going on during that time. And my then husband was starting his own business. And so all the financial responsibility was on me, and the emotional load was on me, and the mental load was on me. I would cry. And I remember feeling like I was weeping, and I couldn't even recognize who that was. I almost feel like it was like my ancestors. Like I felt like this deep like weep from like within my womb, where I was just like, I have never heard myself cry like this. And I remember my ex-husband asked me, he's like, what is going on? Like, I'm concerned. Like, what is this happening? I'm like, I just feel like I have a greater purpose. This is not my life. But I couldn't connect the two together. I couldn't realize in that moment that the life I was in with him was also part of this is not my life. So it was 2022. I had already gone through IVF for about a year. It was 3 rounds back to back, ended up with this one embryo. And so at that point, we had decided that we would try and transfer this one embryo and just give it a shot, because financially IVF is really expensive and we were financing this. So I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with this one embryo. And if it sticks, it sticks. Well, God had other plans as well, because even trying to transfer this embryo, my womb wasn't even ready to receive this embryo. Every time we would try a different protocol, different this, different that, it wasn't working. I think I was actually able to notice a shift in the dynamic, although the shift in our dynamic had already shifted from before. I just was able to recognize it. And I had asked him one day, and it was 2022 in May, and I asked him, like, you need to talk to me. Like, what is going on? And it was in that moment that he had shared that, he didn't want to be in this relationship, that, he was on his personal growth and personal development journey, and I was resisting, and he was going through a lot of different changes, and he felt like I wasn't being supportive. But in my mind, I was like, how am I not being supportive? Like, I'm financially providing and like helping. but he wanted more. And, he said that he didn't feel like a provider and he didn't feel like he was a man and all of these things. And so for me, I was like, oh, this is so honorable. Like I have to respect his decision as much as it hurts me. And so I started looking for a place to live so that we could physically separate. I found a place in Orange County in Irvine. And that was also just on a whim. I was listening to a podcast. I was driving down PCH just to clear my mind because I was looking in the valley, which is where I'm from and where I had always lived. And I kept finding apartments. I'm like, why do I keep wanting to stay in the same perimeter? I was on a hike and I went to the top of the mountain and it was like all these clouds. And I was like, what's beyond those clouds? Like, why am I just circling in this little space? Like, I want to go more. I was actually listening to like a Joe Dispenza meditation when I was on the top of that mountain. Something told me like, you need to go beyond like your horizons here. Like, you're not like you've outgrown this area. So as I'm driving, I end up in Laguna Beach. I end up at this park called Heisler Park that I had always said before. I'm like, oh, I would love to live right by this park because this is such a beautiful place. I've always seen like other people that I knew coming here. And I decided to take like the 405 way like back. And I was like, you know what? I can actually make this happen. I always said I wanted to live here. And the reason I couldn't live here before was because of my ex. I can take my job anywhere. I can actually live here and I can actually be 15 minutes away from this park that I love. And I came back the next day. I saw 4 apartments. The last apartment that I saw, I was like, I knew that was it. Signed the lease and I moved like a week later. But right before then, I was like, I'm going to live in the valley somewhere. I'm going to go, maybe I'll go back to mommy and daddy's. And I think my higher self is coming through and just telling me, no, like that's just another escape. If you really want to see who you are, outside of being a nurse, outside of being the good girl, outside of being a daughter, outside of being a nurse, a sister, a friend, a wife, you need to be far enough removed from everything that you know so that you can really find yourself. And so I did. And after that move, that's when things started to accelerate more for me. I ended up going to a retreat in Austin in October. I was originally supposed to go to a retreat in Mexico. It was a yoga retreat. And last minute, I get this email and it says like, hey, you might be interested in this retreat. My wife is bringing it back. And I disregarded it. I threw it in the trash. And then I get another email and it said, hey, please disregard that email. Like we had the wrong information on there. Here's the correct stuff. So I open it. I'm like, okay, let me see like what this is about. The retreat started saying things that resonated a lot with where I was at, what I was looking for. I decided last minute to cancel that yoga retreat, go there. I go there. It's where I felt like within myself, my masculine and my feminine and my inner child, I was able to meet all of that. It was the first time that I actually felt whole. It was like a whole experiential weekend. It was a lot of somatic experiencing and practicing. And I was like, oh my God, this is a missing link. I've been focusing on mindset work, everything in the mind. And here, like I was able to bring these parts of me and actually feel whole and actually feel all the feelings. From there, I met somebody who led me to my embodiment coach. I entered an embodiment coaching container for 6 months. And I was debating doing a different coaching program, actually, because that was their community. And towards the end, it was getting closer to my birthday. So now we're talking about like April 2023. I'm on this healing journey and all these things are coming up. And I hear about DCI. It just like pops up on the divine algorithm of Instagram is what I call it. And it's you and you're talking about DCI and, to sign up. And I'm like, oh, well, to be honest, I hadn't heard of you up until then. I was like, who is Sahara Rose? Okay, I go look, I listen to your podcast, I listen to your story, I hear about Nita. And I was like, oh my God, like this all resonates. This feels like I'm not on the fence. Like, should I, shouldn't I? Like, this is a yes. I don't even know if I want to be a coach yet. At that time, I was more focused on breathwork facilitation because that was my number one thing. And I kept thinking like, which one should I do first? And I was just like, it doesn't matter. Like the call to want to do this is not going to go away until I actually do it and I'll see what comes of it. So I did on my birthday, May 2nd of 2023, I signed up for DCI. You actually had sent me like a voice message because I had gone on a discovery call and I was just like, oh, like this is so nice. Like there's so many people and she's, sent a message and it just felt like a sign. So I did. And in that time, I became a breathwork facilitator as well. And, through that whole time, I was also going through my divorce. And that was really heavy. And a part of me was like, why am I choosing to do all of these certifications and these programs while I'm going through a divorce that's very high conflict? But I realize now, looking back, I was meant to not wait any longer and not wait to start my life until a judge or someone outside of me signed a piece of paper to say that I'm now liberated. It's like, no, I get to liberate myself. And yes, it's hard, but honestly, it was like my lifeline. It was what was giving me life. I was feeling alive. Even if I was feeling the pain and the grief and the sorrow, the deeper I went into my shadows as I was going through this program, the more easily I was able to find joy in like my everyday life. Like every day I would just wake up. I'm like, yeah, like this divorce situation is super shitty. And like, kind of like you, I'm like, I lived in an apartment that was nicer. I was making friendships, like soul sisters that I call now. I have like my own sister circle that I host. Like I just became my own and I flourished in this place. Had I not gone through this divorce, had I not followed my gut for once, because I had always ignored it. So now I was like, I'm following those signals, my intuition. I'm going to trust to have my own back. And if I make a wrong turn, I course correct, and that's okay. Instead of just like, I'm going to wait until I know exactly where it's going to be, because that's how I had lived my whole life. I felt like I was checking off a box. Like, okay, I got the career, check. Okay, I bought my own place, check. Okay, I got engaged, check. Okay, now I'm married. Now I'm trying to have this kid. Oh, I can't check off this becoming a mom, like getting pregnant box. Like, why? Like, why can't, like, my life is over now, basically, is how I felt. Like, little did I know that on the other side of that, it's like, no, my life was just beginning. That wasn't my life.